So I just have my camera on just for a moment so that you can see my face. If you ever, when life gets back to normal, you'll see me at Target and Walmart, so you can say hi. So today we're going to be talking about inclusive classes and using Office 365. This is a presentation that I've done at Langston. And actually with Meridian with T4E, I did earlier versions of this, and I've done some presentations for students as well. About me, I'm Allie Sharp. I am an instructional designer at CTI, which is at Langston University. And my email address is sharpa@langston.edu, like SHARPA, not like the dog, Sharpay. And my phone number is 405-466-2007. Email is always best for me because I'm often doing training and we are very busy at CTI. So, okay, Office 365 is, if your school is participating, it's a free download at office.com. It's important to know this because sometimes when students come into CTI for help, usually with a password reset, I trap them and tell them, do you know you have Office 365? Because sometimes students will buy Word and PowerPoint and things like that. They don't need to. If your university is using Office 365, they get that for free. It's available for PC and Mac and for smartphone and tablet, and through web browsers, Chrome users can use them. I believe it's 5 devices, so it can be on all over the place. So students have no reason to purchase it if your university uses that. And as the parent of a university student at OU, it is very nice to have something that's doesn't have to be paid for. And to sign in, you use your Office 365 university email and password. This is one thing where things get a little confusing, because if you have a Windows PC, you had to set up an Office account to use that. It's usually not the same. So people usually have to sign out of one thing and sign in. So if you're like, I don't see any of these tools on my computer, it's because you need to sign in with your school email and password, assuming that they have it. Okay, so here's an overview of today. We're going to talk about some quick general principles of accessibility. This presentation is only 30 minutes, so it's truly the basics. We're going to talk about the Edge browser. That's the most important tool for students to use, I think, because of its accessibility options. And we'll look at some common learning tools inside Office 365 and the accessibility checkers. When I'm talking about Microsoft learning tools, this is what I'm talking about. Primarily the accessibility checker, which helps make sure that the documents that you create are able to be read by different screen readers and have ease of access for everyone. There's the read aloud tools, dictation tools, text spacing and colors. There is a visual dictionary available, text focus, and there's actually an editor help. So those are all part of your Office 365. So when I'm really thinking about what does it mean to be accessible, I think about students. I was a public school teacher. I taught at Stillwater Schools for 17 years. Then I worked with Meridian and then NOC and now Langston. But when I worked with students will put in, they have a finite amount of time. So if they only have an hour, whether they are people who have some learning issues, or some physical issues, or just temporal issues, the easier it is for students to access and understand your content, the easier it is for students to engage in and learn from your course. If they are spending most of their hour that they have set aside for your class just trying to navigate, or just trying to open, or just trying to read, they're not spending that time embracing and getting entrenched in the information you're trying to teach. So we want to make it as easy as possible. I have never used a wheelchair, but I use wheelchair access all the time because I'm dragging stuff around and going, you know, I don't have time to go upstairs sometimes and then go back down and carry it back up. Make it easy for everyone. Everyone can use it. When we're designing handouts or content, consider these students. You will have students who may have limited vision. You'll have students who may have limited hearing. And you'll have students who may not use a mouse. And these are all things that are easy to test when you're creating your content, because you can just try not using a mouse. Try going through your content with your eyes closed. Try turning down the sound and watching a video. That's what I'm doing when I test things. One piece that isn't necessarily in this is that there are students who have time issues. Maybe it's through focus. Students who are speaking but also have stuttering, it will take them longer to record things and say things. But for the office tools, we look at limited vision, limited hearing, and people who may not be using a mouse. So the Microsoft Edge browser is free. It's available for every device. And it has a tool called Immersive Reader that you can find just by right-clicking content or choosing the little book icon on the toolbar. And the book appears when content is fully loaded, so on a slower connection, it might take a while. And with Immersive Reader, you can change font size, spacing, and change colors. And you can have PDFs read aloud. It's also possible to annotate directly in the browser. I'm a teacher consultant for the OSU Writing Project, and one thing that we teach people is, for some students, placing 3 dots on the page and then pausing and checking what you read helps them focus. Those are all things that can be done with a PDF. So if they're going into their course through Canvas or D2L, they're using a web browser. If they use the Edge, any PDFs they open, they'll have these Immersive Reader tools. So to do this, we right-click.
Housing and residential life. All apartment leases are for a full academic year, unless the spring.
And that's the Langston web page, and you can see it's reading aloud. It has the option to change the voice, to change the translation language, to change the accents even, and to change the speed. So this is within that immersive browser. Right-clicking on any web page, just either highlighting the content, will bring that read aloud option up. So I'm selecting it, and then I right-click to bring up the menu, and then it goes, and it highlights the words. Microsoft Edge can also translate. So again, we click the little book on the URL and choose Immersive Reader, and then you can change your reading preferences, and one of those preferences is to translate the whole web page. So if English is not someone's first language or not the language that they're most comfortable with, they can change the entire web page or just a few words and see the entire translation. I'm going to show you some of this in action after I go through this presentation to make sure that we have time to see all the other tools as well. In Microsoft Office, Immersive Reader is available. It's especially useful in Microsoft Word for long documents. So when we think about how the Microsoft Office toolbar works, across the top it has options, and because Immersive Reader is a view, we're going to go to the View tab and choose the Immersive Toolbox. And there's the option to focus, which will reduce it to specific lines, to hear the read aloud, or have the immersive tools. And again, this is available on Mac, PC, web, and iPad. So it's available for really every student. I think they're adding it to Android tablets. So inside, this is inside Word, and this is that Immersive Reader. I'm going to turn down the sound, but I'm going up to the View tab, choosing Immersive Reader, and I can change the background. So if your students are saying that they're having headaches, it might be because they're reading on a white screen in a dark dorm room. So they can change that page color to something that's more comfortable for them. Line focus lets it just show 1 line, 2 lines, or 3 lines at a time. and then it can be reading aloud. Some students benefit from having the nouns highlighted, especially students that are have some focus issues, because then they just know if they've made their nouns purple, they just know look for the purple and you get the main idea. So there's a lot of tools that I have found new uses for. Breaking up the syllable can be helpful for students with dyslexia. Line focus can be useful. Before the Edge browser, I used to always recommend the open dyslexic font, and I still do because it weighs down, it anchors down words. But Immersive Reader seems to be working really well with students with dyslexia. So these tools also exist in Microsoft Outlook, only they're hard to find because Microsoft likes to hide the best things, it seems like. So in an Outlook message, this is on the web, by the way, this is not on the desktop one. In the Microsoft Outlook web version, there's 3 little dots in a message at the very top, and when you select it, it has the option to show in Immersive Reader. I'm seeing the tools appear. I'm a beta tester, and I'm seeing the tools appear on the menus in the beta version, so I think that's going to change. But if you look at Show Immersive Reader, it will read messages out loud to you. So here's an example of that in Outlook. This was from the summer. I went to Show in Immersive Reader, and it was spring break from last year.
And successful spring break from our Dean of Students.
And you change the voice.
2020. Spring break and COVID-19. Dear students, spring break is often a time of travel and relaxation.
And changing the font.
While we want you to enjoy your time,
and changing the background. And actually you can change, you can have the grammar options like I was saying and put like nouns in a specific color, and those colors can be changed as well. This is available in the Edge, Outlook, and Word. And then there's that reading preferences where everything can change. The complete language can change. So I think I changed it to Spanish in this one. Or maybe I don't. But you can change the language completely. Word Online, and this is coming into the desktop version. I've seen it on the PC version and the Mac version. Has the option where you can dictate text. So the way that I've used this professionally is sometimes I'll be recording a video and then I have another computer or I have it doing dictate text so I can record what I'm saying. So dictating lets people type, and in the handout I'm going to have for you, it shows how to get the punctuation marks and things in there. And then editor suggests corrections, and this goes beyond spell check and grammar check. It looks for clarity, it looks for cohesion, it looks for vocabulary options and inclusiveness, and it looks for conventions and gives a score. So these are on the editing tab. The editor is on there, and dictate is now on the home tab because it's becoming such a useful tool. So the editor, this is Word Online, and the editor is going to suggest some corrections. This is a Microsoft video coming over to editor. It gives corrections for spelling and grammar, and then it jumps over to the page just like we're used to, but it also has refinements for clarity, conciseness, formality, and inclusiveness. One of the best tools for accessibility in Office is to just check accessibility, and it's always under the Review tab. In Excel, you'll see it under Review, check accessibility. PowerPoint, it goes to Review, check accessibility. And in Word, Review tab, check accessibility. So there's a trend there. It's under the Review tab because it's in the review stage. So View is where we see inclusive reading tools and focus tools. Review is where you're going to see that accessibility checker. This is a Microsoft video where you can see how it works. So this is in PowerPoint that we can see the accessibility checker in action. So we're going to go up to the Review tab and choose Check Accessibility. And then it will come up with these options, and it will say you're missing alternative text, which is necessary for somebody who may need some support with vision. And so when you click on the little tiny down arrow and open it up, it's going to guide you to add a description. So when we're adding descriptions, think, how would I describe this to someone over the phone? What do they need to know? If the image is decorative, for example, it's just a border, then you mark it as decorative and screen readers don't pick up on it. And so you'll see that tool in Word, in PowerPoint, in Excel, and kind of everywhere. If for some reason, perhaps you're using an older version or you're not seeing it on your Review tab, if you go to File and then Info, it has the option to inspect a document or inspect a presentation, and that will also show you that accessibility checker. But you should be, if you're using Office 365, you'll see that on the Review tab. It seems to be everywhere. So a final thought before I show you some things with the Edge browser is that treating different things the same can generate as much inequality as treating the same things differently. And that's Kimberly Crenshaw. That when we make something have universal design or make it accessible for everyone, suddenly we're embracing people who maybe don't fit under an IEP or a 504 category, but are able to learn and embrace and participate in new ways because they are able to access the content. So I want to show you some of the resources that I have for you, and I'm going to change my screen sharing to, you can see I was looking at the press books because I was so interested in that. So let me show you what I have for you. First, this is a OneNote. I get a lot of content from Microsoft. I was a Microsoft Office trainer for several years, and I continue that training as I try to pursue the educate more within the innovative education certificate sphere, and I'm a Google certified educator as well. So this OneNote is one that I made for Langston, for Mrs. Buckley, who runs the accessibility, and it goes over each tab of Microsoft Word, the Edge browser, OneNote, and these got moved out of order because I usually have them alphabetically. And so Office Lens is something that's not in that PowerPoint, but if you take a picture, if you download Office Lens and take a picture of a document, PDF file, book, or whatever, it will make it a searchable text, and that's in Office Lens. So this goes through each tool, and it has resources as well, which is really where I got a lot of this from, because I kind of copy and paste from Microsoft and I adapt things. This is one of the things I'm going to share with you, is this OneNote, and I share this with anybody who asks because it has all the tools right there. This is a learning tools handout that I'm going to share with you. And really, I made this for professors to just give students of the very minimum they need to know is Microsoft Edge and using Word, and then some keyboard shortcuts. And then this is a printout of, or this is a PDF of that OneNote in case somebody didn't have OneNote. I just made this for you. I've never used this before. The videos wouldn't work, but I thought if you don't have OneNote, but you want to see what's in there, it's all there. So what I'm going to do is put this link in chat because I can't share Office 365 files if you're not in my Office 365 group and through A&M. So this is my website. It's called A Sharp Cookie. I used to teach senior citizens, like super senior citizens. They were in the Silver Sneakers Club and then came to Meridian for classes. So they were usually in their 80s. And one of them used to call me a Sharp cookie because my last name is Sharp. So when I made a website for freelancing, that's the name. So anyhow, I have the videos or the content from this morning, and then I have the handout, the PDF, the PowerPoint, and the OneNote. So I'm going to put that in chat for you so that you are able to download that. And I think Brad said that later on we're going to have, thank you, Jamie. I think Brad said that he'll have that, the files later on and email to you. If you're in the A&M system, I have this video called Microsoft Learning Tools Intro for Langston, and I made that for Langston University for professors to share with their students. And so you're welcome to use this. It's a searchable stream video, and it's only 5 minutes because that's pretty much all students can handle for something like that, because then they'll go down and do it. And then I have the Edge browser video, which is also 5 minutes, and then Immersive Reader. So if you are in Langston or OSU or Cameron or anyone that uses our system, just email me and I will send you the video link. And anyone can email me. I'm happy to help you. My name is Allie Sharp, and I'm the instructional designer at CTI at Langston University, and my email address is sharpa@langston.edu. So do we have any questions? I'm happy to answer questions. I know I just talked a whole lot. I'll turn my video back on too. Hi. Okay, so how can I help people?
Allie, I just want to say I'm blown away. I knew, about the core accessibility functions through Word, PowerPoint, through that checker feature, but I didn't realize on the other end how much they were doing to try to make the user experience easier. And it's surprising to me, that you demonstrated here that they try to hide some of these tools sometimes. So I'm very happy to know that they're looking at trying to bring those up to the forefront a little bit more.
They do. Whenever I do beta testing, that's the thing I say is like, why do you always hide things behind 3 dots or a tiny gray caret in the bottom of a toolbox?
I will say the one that I'm most blown away by, I think, which is probably the most simple that you've shown us, is the changing of the background in Word. I mean, I stare at those documents for hours on a daily basis, and that blue light that comes through when you're viewing the white screen can really be impactful if you're having to do that. I mean, that's honestly that I'm going to share with my learners in my online course, because I think they would find that so helpful.
Very much so. Are you seeing my screen right now where it says Langston?
Yes.
Okay, so this is inside the Edge browser, right? And I'm going to select this text, and then I'm right clicking. And when I choose, you can see it has the option read aloud or show an immersive reader. And I can go to reading preferences. Here's that line focus, where it's one line at a time. The text preferences, so that black is so much better for students or for anybody reading in a dark room. And then the picture dictionary, which for university, I know it's a little babyish, but especially for somebody who's maybe not comfortable with the language.
I'm thinking about, if you're a non-native speaker of English, that would be the most helpful tool possible for you for language.
Yeah, and it's really kind of so, and then if you're speaking, when I taught at NOC, there's a lot of students who spoke Arabic and Korean, and it translates the whole web page.
Allie, if there's a reason that somebody is not able to use Microsoft Edge, because I know, for example, working at the State Regents, we have to use Firefox as our browser due to security reasons. Do you have any comments about the other common browsers and their ability to do some of these similar functions, or maybe perhaps even rank them, between like Firefox and Chrome, whatever else is out there?
Well, I will tell you that you can get the Immersive Reader tool as an add-on for Chrome and I believe Firefox.
That's good.
So
Thank you.
Dr. Sultani would know more about how to get add-ons
Mhm.
for Firefox because he uses that a lot.
Thank you.
But they do have inclusive access for those. And that it's weird because some things do work better, but when I'm thinking about what's best for students right now is Edge because it's free and it has all these tools. And I do think Immersive Reader is available as an add-on.
Thank you, Allie.
You are welcome. So if there's any more questions, and I love talking about this, so as you're exploring, email me. I'm going to put my email again, and I'm happy to, we do workshops with CTI, we do training, so I'm sure if there's space, you're welcome to join if you want to play with it, and we can learn again together. I'm happy to come back anytime.
Thank you, Allie.